I
There
don't
you go.
know.
There we go.
There we go.
Leave the camera on. So what we're doing here, so
Okay.
essentially give you a rundown of what this is. It's called the Director's Dungeon. Hi, I'm the director. Welcome to my dungeon. Um, and so
Thanks.
it's a show where I talk to people who are kind of either directly related to the movie. That's you. You're one of the you're one of our like historical references that we go to make sure that I'm not making stuff up. Uh, and so we're going to talk about that.
Right.
And but essentially the whole premise is that I want people to meet you, and so they can, and so the things that you're doing get a little bit more exposed to the world. So I do want to talk about the sanitariums, obviously, in your book. I do want to talk about the special exhibit
Okay.
that has been brought in that I believe Paul has on loan. Is that accurate?
A majority of it. I mean, some
Okay.
other people have things in the exhibit, but a majority of it is Paul's.
Okay. And then of course, EggCon and kind of the things that are happening in Lake Geneva that are coming up. So, topical things and then relevant things that are happening in the near future, essentially.
Okay, so EggCon, Dragon Days.
Yep. Hmm.
Gotcha.
And so I'll prompt you through it, and I just kind of,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, just answer those questions as completely as you feel is necessary to explain what it is you're talking about.
Okay.
Please ramble. Just it's not so bad. People like that on podcasts. All right.
Okay, see what I can do.
All right, let's roll. Uh, and so I've got my note taker in here as well. So we'll have a synopsis of this broken down for us at the end of it. All right. So um, let's start by talking about who you are and what you do and where you work and why that place is important.
My name is Sonja Akright. I am the Director of Administration at the Geneva Lake Museum. And we have a 600 square foot exhibit space. It's its own room dedicated to honoring the life of Gary Gygax as he was a community member here and his contribution to D&D.
And so tell us a little bit about that exhibit specifically and about Gary Gygax and his connection to Lake Geneva and why that's significant, please.
Okay, so I mentioned it's a 600 square foot exhibit space. We have two stained glass windows that were designed by Jeff Easley and then crafted by Gilbertson Stained Glass locally. We have a beautiful custom wooden handmade table donated from Hammered Game Tables from Daniel Fisher. It is absolutely gorgeous. A lot of our art is done by Jeff Easley. We have a full scale creature column designed in there so you can see how you measure up to the creatures in our dungeon.
So for people who
And
don't
then
know,
our
can you tell us who Jeff Easley is?
he is a former TSR artist and he lives in the Lake Geneva area.
So what is he with like what kind of what pieces would you know him for? Like what is his affiliation with D&D? You're
You
like
got
there's
me
so
on this one,
many.
Chris. Hold on.
Yeah,
I mean, there is. He's got
there's one behind
so
me.
he's got his art book. Yes, yes, and so we've got the triptych in the room too
Mhm.
that has his famous art from it. But where it's from right now in this second, can't tell you because you asked me.
Oh, that's fair. No,
I
no,
know that his
you've told me before. That's why I asked. That's the only reason I asked. And so she does, ladies and
yes,
gentlemen,
yes,
Sonja does in fact know her stuff, and she has told me before I would not have put her on the spot like this if she didn't. And so let me make that clear. Uh, Sonja, you don't do
much
podcasts often, do
appreciate
you?
that. I do not. I
And
do not. So
all is forgiven. I know this is a
I have a
very
small case of the nerves.
right. It's so this is a very I get it, especially the first few times you do it. Like you know the answers to this, Chris, right? And so why are you asking me again? It's like no, it's not for me. It's that we do in fact know this about each other, and so I'm drawing from that knowledge, right? So
Yes.
let's talk about something that I know that you can speak about like very very well versed. Let's talk about the inspiration that Gary got from the sanitariums. Um, You've written a book on
Okay.
the sanitariums and know a lot about the kind of the architecture and the local lore that has gone into that has kind of creeped into D&D lore. And so give us some of that background because that's a really cool story too.
Okay. So Gary did grow up here as a child and young adult. And one of the things that he used to like to do was him and his friends would go into the abandoned sanitarium and they would scare other kids in there. They would crawl around in the tunnels underneath the place. And it was quite dilapidated. There were several fires in the 50s that really just set it into this horrific state of danger, if you will. Going in there was dangerous for these kids, but they would go in there and so he would go in there and he would have adventures. He would scare other kids. They would use fireworks, flares. So we'd send up several times. The fire department was called out there because there was a fire, but really was just a flare sitting in front of a mirror, and there was no fire. There were fires. So that was a lot of fun. And then he had read a book by another Lake Geneva resident that he had written about his memories of crawling through the crazy house, which is what all the kids called it at the time, and the local folks. And he felt compelled to write a letter to the editor. And in the letter to the editor, he talks about his memories of crawling around this space and how that really fed into his imagination for the dungeon crawling that he would write in Dungeons and Dragons.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And so I know the site isn't very far from where the museum is. So tell me a little bit more
No, it's
about
not very far.
yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your book, and why it sparked an interest in you to research that so much and then create a published work from it.
Okay, so I do have a book, The Sanitariums of Lake Geneva. I also have an exhibit here at the museum that have quite a few relics that I have managed to find throughout the year. I had seen a postcard of this beautiful 5-story brick red pressed building that sat up on Catholic Hill. And my father is in construction and architecture, and I was really compelled to know about this. So as I begin to ask around the community, what can you tell me about this? Oh, that's a crazy house. Oh, okay. Well, what else can you tell me about this? Oh, it was haunted and kids used to play there. Well, when was it built? Oh, I don't know. Well, who built it? Who found it? Well, I don't know. So I could get a lot of the lore from the 40s and 50s kids that had played in there, or just from people around town that wouldn't go there because it was so scary. But nobody could tell me the facts. Nobody could tell me who the founding doctors were, what they actually did there when the place opened. So I began to do a deep dive to find these things out. I really wanted to know these things. So for about 15 years, I did research. When I first started research, nothing was digitized. It was all microfiche and having to go to all these places. As things have come along, it's become a lot easier. So many things are digitized and they have them uploaded in their library, and you can do it from the comfort of your home. But I really wanted to know more about it. And then when it came to the piece about Gary being connected, so I started playing D&D in middle school. The dungeon was downtown. Ernie Gygax was the DM in the basement. So I had played D&D since I was a young child. When I got the piece of information that Gary had crawled around in there and that was triggering his dungeon crawling events, it just pulled me in even more. I really needed to know about it. So it is my absolute passion. I continue to research on it and find things. Relics are getting harder to find. It's over 135 years old now, and most of the patients were not local. So most of those things are gone, but I do have a fairly good collection of relics in the exhibit here.
I have seen the exhibit, and it is true. You do have a very fun collection. I would say fun, but a very nice collection of relics from the from the sanitarium. So let's.
I do also give quite presentations quite often around the area, libraries, civic clubs. I just spoke to the Walworth County Genealogical Society, so I love to present on it as well.
Yeah, and I can tell every time you talk about it, you light up, and so I'm so glad that you've been a resource for our film, because that adds a layer of depth to to the story that we get to tell too, because you did that research and now you can kind of tell that story on behalf of these people who aren't around to tell it anymore. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
to be able to pass not only like you've done that research just to pass it along, but now I get to pass it along, at least a small part of it, as part of the story that I'm trying to tell too. So, we're very appreciative of that, from you, and the museum up there, which been too kind to us. I don't even know what we've done to deserve it, but you have been. But we're very grateful for it, without doubt. So, moving from the history of Lake Geneva into the present and future, let's talk about the museum itself and how it's developed over time into this really high quality museum with a lot of really incredible exhibits, like the sanitarium exhibit, like the D&D room, like the main street that you have that goes through the museum to the I don't even remember the name of the house in the back with the that burned down, and that was burned down on purpose.
Ceylon Court.
Yeah, Ceylon Court. All that, all of this, all of these different exhibits that you know uh, maybe aren't necessarily broadly historically relevant to most of the country, but still really great stories to read about and to hear about, when you go into a museum like yours. So, tell us a little bit how that came into existence and how it's developed over time.
So the museum is 40 years old. We spent 20 years in a different location, in a very small home turned business. Looked like a castle made out of brick. At that point, it was an eclectic grouping of vintage things. It was started by a group called the Local History Buffs. And so some of it was local things, but some of it was just really kind of old things that they were trying to put together as this museum. They spent 20 years in that location. During that time, they weeded out some of the filler items that were just vintage and started really filling them in with local items. We have a very strong tie to Chicago because of the fire, the Chicago fire. A lot of wealthy Chicagoans came up here and built estates around the lake. So we have quite a few relics and artifacts and even exhibits from some of those, such as Ceylon Court. So what happened is they actually outgrew that building. The other thing that happened is the city wanted to remove that building so that they could put parking in there. They tried to sell the building. Nobody wanted it. They tried to sell it for $1 and you move it. Nobody wanted it. So eventually they took it down, and then we were able to come on over here to what used to be Wisconsin Power and Light. And we now are in this building, and we've now been here for 20 years. We do have a plethora of different exhibits. We do have the Main Street, starts with the Potawatomi and kind of the indigenous exhibit, moves through kind of the farming and the early frontier 1860s. Our exhibits are able to walk into, so you can walk into an 1880s parlor and kind of get a real feel of that time period. And those relics that are in these exhibits are from estates or are from people who have lived around the Geneva Lake area. So that's one thing that's really special about our museum as well. We've got our general store. We have a two-sided kitchen. So half of the kitchen is 1920s and the other half of the kitchen is 1880s. We have a lot of school groups that come through, so they're really learning about kind of these differences in time. We are currently redoing our military room. We had some water damage over the winter, and so we are in the midst right now of finishing up our fundraising, and we are fully renovating and redoing the military room, switching gears to be honoring our local heroes. So again, kind of removing some of the generic military items and things and really replacing it with items and stories from local folks that served in any of those times. And then you come up to the North Gallery and we have a whole nother wing full of things. One thing we hear when people come in, and we have a lot of people who live here and then come in and say, oh my gosh, I never knew all this was in here. It doesn't look like it from the outside of the building. But when they do come inside, especially with the Main Street, we get a lot of reference back to, oh, this feels like the Milwaukee Public Museum with their Main Street. It has a very similar feel. You can walk in and out of the houses like that. So we've spent a lot of time really elevating our exhibits, weeding out some of the, again, filler things that are just vintage items and really replacing them with things that speak to stories and people of the Geneva Lake area.
I love that. That's amazing. And so let's talk about some events that are coming up. I know July there's a gaming convention that's coming to town, and that's EggCon. Yes, you want to tell me a little bit about that?
EggCon, Ernest Gary Gygax Con, and it is a con held really around to celebrating Gary's birthday. It's put on by Eric and Heidi Gygax Garland. Sorry about that. And they really do a great job. They bring a lot of people. It's kind of a small event. It's only their third year into this now, but it's wonderful. It really gives people a chance to get together and play games with maybe some legendary people in their eyes. Frank Menser will be here hosting a game on Friday night of EggCon at the museum. We do a special event on the gaming table in the exhibit. I know that Mike Carr and several other folks are hosting games at some of the other locations that they'll be having. Again, it's just a really nice, small, intimate con to be able to play and meet some of these people.
Yeah, I may end up being there filming some of Frank. Not necessarily for the movie, but I may be there filming some stuff for Frank because we're working on some other things together. And yeah, may end up hanging out with you guys during that. Just maybe not in the game,
Excellent.
but like with the camera around.
I'm not gaming. I
well,
got to keep my eye on the museum, and so we'll hang out totally. Yeah, love that.
And yeah, so I'm not sure exactly which days I'm going to be up there, but if it works out, then I think that I'll probably be there for that. That sounds like something that I'll be there for, according to Jamie. So,
perfect. Yeah, Jamie, everybody's handler these days.
He's quite good at it.
Yes,
and I'm appreciative of that. Yes, he is.
He's and very so, yes, he is.
But
and
then what?
After EggCon.
Oh, go on, tell me.
In the fall, in October, there'll be Dragon Days. So that's a fantasy festival here in town for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, the 4th and 5th of October.
Yep.
We will again have a game here. I know that currently they're working out who's going to be running that game and what that's going to look like. But in addition to the gaming and the meeting of people, there's a whole fantasy festival set up downtown between the library and the museum. There's walks on the walking tour given about the places downtown that Gary had influence on or had influence on him, such as the 330 Center Street place, the original birthplace of D&D, very exciting place.
Mm-hmm.
And Yolanda's a wonderful hostess there. So Dragon Days is going to be another chance to kind of come out, see Lake Geneva, and really dive into the D&D culture. The museum extends its hours so that we are open for folks to be able to come in and see the exhibit.
Nice. Yeah, and I've been working on some of the footage that I have from 330 Center Street, and I'm so grateful that that you were able to help us get that tour because some of Yolanda's Yolanda's story of happening into the house is really fun to begin with, right? And then the fact that she's taken the time to learn the history and the lore and is able to walk people through and give a tour of the house and really understand its importance now is it's just fun going from her her mom, her people complimenting her mom's garden and just a whole bunch of people coming by to now she's running tours and has built the sand table in the basement, and it's kind of nice. It's lovely to have it when something like this finds a steward like that,
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so what's next for you? Let's go beyond Lake Geneva. What are you working on personally?
So I am working on a little project that's a cross tie in between the sanitariums and D&D, but I'm really kind of keeping it on the down low right now. But it's a really fun project. I've got a lot of hours into it. I'm really just starting to pull some people into it. Just trying to gauge some interest, looking for some endorsing things of that. I've got grand visions for this. And then also, I did publish my one book, and I am looking to publish another historical book about a different place in the area. So I think I'll keep on with the sharing of the local history through publication.
Nice. Well, I'm going to get the links to the book so I can put it on the podcast notes and stuff like that. So, um, and if anybody watches or listens to it, they'll be able to click through to it. Um, I'm not saying anybody's going to listen to what we have to say, but if they do, hey, great, thank you. But
Those
yeah,
two people might.
right. I think a few people will listen. Without doubt, Vinny is going to listen almost certainly. Um, and I think Jamie probably will. Justin
See,
won't.
and I think
No,
Brendan will listen
I
too.
can
So
give you
look,
the
we've already
whole
got
list of
three
who will
viewers.
and won't. Yeah, so we've already got fans, right? So
I love
Justin's
that.
mom
I love
probably
that.
will. Yeah,
Perfect.
right? No, she's a lovely woman and a great audience to have. Um, anyway, I think that really hits all of my questions that I had for you, and so that puts us at about 20 minutes, which is about what it's been, believe it or not, for these
Okay.
episodes. So either I'm a bad host or
And
or I
for as
just
much as I talk, it's kind of amazing that I only talked 20 minutes.
well, it's a little more than 20 minutes. So we're looking at 23. So 10% more, right?
Oh,
But
perfect. Great. I'm an overachiever.
overachiever. That's right.
Right.
I had playwrights on the other day, and it just went really well. And I watched the shows; they weren't bad. But I was like, they were too efficient for a podcast. So
Too efficient. Yes, for sure.
so
Well, I
um,
appreciate you having me today.
well, I appreciate you coming on. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon. I think I'm I'm about 95% sure that I'm coming to EdCon. I just got to work out the logistics of where I'm going to be um, at night sleeping, and if I have to get an Airbnb, and if that costs too much, it probably does in July in Lake Geneva. Uh, and so we'll figure it out. But I think
Probably. You could sleep in the exhibit on the floor.
I would do that.
Sounds
Like I'll
good.
go crawl into the little hut thing that you have there. I know that you've had people do that before and you've kicked them out, but if I get permission, right, it's fine. So,
I'm
yeah.
saying that's half
No,
the battle right there.
I think if Jamie's gonna be there too, then I'll be able to stay with him. We'll be able to go back and forth. So he's only 45 minutes from Lake Geneva, so it's not a big deal. Um, but yeah,
Perfect.
that's everything.
And I'll
We'll
be there
talk.
every day. I'll be at the museum Friday night, but otherwise I'm playing, so I'll find you.
I'll be around. I'm sure Jamie wants to be there the whole time. So, yeah, it's
Okay.
good talking to you again. I'll talk to you soon. Toodles.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Take care.
Bye.